Good afternoon, my conscious co-creators. Welcome to another edition of the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. I am very, very pleased that you are here with me today. Oh, we've got a wonderful show in store for you today with a great guest in studio with us that I think you're really going to enjoy, talking about a very important topic. But first, of course, we have our quotes of the day from the universe and from Abraham. Let's see what the universe and Abraham have in store for us today. First, from the universe. Thinking brand new thoughts that you've never thought before is far more conducive to creating big life changes than thinking different varieties of the same old thoughts. Think about it. The universe. I think the universe having a little fun with us today, reminding us that, if we want to change, change starts with our thoughts. It starts, I like to say, with our focus, with, what are we thinking about? What are we ruminating on? What are we meditating on? And that, if we keep focusing on the same old thing, if we keep thinking the same old way, we're going to get the same old results. We're going to stay in the same places. We're going to be a little bit stuck maybe. So the more we shift our thinking, and you guys know it's not just about thinking, it's about feeling, it's about embodying different things as well. But it starts with the thinking. So as we learn to think different things, we can now sort of come up with different ways of doing things. Being open-minded is actually one of the greatest traits that we can have, because if we're open, then we're open to what comes next. We're open to what life is about to bring us. We're open to different ideas of how things can be done and what can be done. So, wonderful quote for the universe for us to think about. And let's see what Abraham has in store for us today. From Abraham: every time you say, I appreciate that, I really like that, I applaud that, I acknowledge the value in that. Every time you do that, you spend some of your energy, and it is the spending of the energy that creates a vacuum, so to speak, or an attraction, so to speak, that draws more and more and more and more. Abraham. This is an interesting quote. I don't think I've ever seen this one before, where Abraham's talking about, first, the importance of appreciation and acknowledgement, and really kind of putting it out there of how much you're enjoying something. But what Abraham is saying is that when we do that, we're actually expending energy. That makes sense, right? And that expenditure of energy creates a little bit of a vacuum or a space or an openness, which can then draw to it or attract to it more of that very same thing that you're acknowledging, that you're appreciating. So that's an interesting way. It's kind of, talking in a way about how the law of attraction works. Because, you guys know, you've been listening to me for long enough now talk about this stuff. Gratitude is one of the highest vibrations we can hold. Being appreciative of what's happening, what's going on, what are you working on, that is one of the ways to draw more things to you. It's kind of like holding your arms open to the universe saying, thank you so much, may I have some more. And so what Abraham is saying is the mechanics behind that is that by opening up your arms, by appreciating what the universe has already brought to you, by acknowledging it and really putting out the effort to be able to say, like, this is so wonderful, that way you're creating space for more of that to come. So this is really kind of why sort of appreciating something and being grateful for it actually brings more of that in, because you're making the space for it. So that's an interesting way, an interesting quote, an interesting way to think about sort of the energy and the sort of give and take and the flow of things and how it interplays in our life and allowing things to come in or not come in if we don't give the gratitude. And these two quotes very much interrelate when you think about what the universe was saying before about thinking different thoughts. Well, if you can be grateful for something and sort of raise your vibration, you're thinking differently maybe about it, you can allow in more changes, more things that can uplift us and change the way we look at the world, the life, and the universe. So, two kind of interesting quotes, nice, short and sweet, from the universe and from Abraham. I hope you enjoyed them. Of course, next week we'll have a couple of more quotes in store for you. And just to remind people, we are live on Facebook, on our Facebook live stream. We already have Jonathan, Ann, and Kevin. Thank you guys for tuning in. And let us flip around the camera while I introduce to you our guest today in studio. And it's someone who I've actually known for a while, and I invited back on the show because of the wonderful work he's done. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Mark Monchek, who is the founder and Chief Opportunity Officer, COO, but not your typical O, of the Opportunity Lab. Mark empowers conscious leaders to build great companies that make a difference in the world. Mark has worked over the years with leaders from such organizations as Google, Apple, Etsy, Eileen Fisher, Taproot Foundation, GE, Goldman Sachs, the New York Times, Wharton, NBC, Time Warner, United Nations, and the United Way of Greater New York, to help them take their organizations to the next level of sustainable growth. And sustainable is a key word to keep in mind today. Mark is also a filmmaker, an author, and a public speaker. His work has been featured on Lifetime, Good B, Conscious Talk Radio, WCBS, Catalyst, Newsday, Working Women Magazine, and the San Francisco Chronicle. Mark's new book, Culture of Opportunity, How to Grow Your Business in an Age of Disruption. Let me just show you real quick. This is the book. It's a great book. Is a compact manifesto that will show you how to thrive in the new world of business. The Culture of Opportunity provides a description of the need for cultures of opportunity, case studies that demonstrate the process and the results, and a toolkit to build your own culture of opportunity that is committed to doing well by doing good. I love that. Doing well by doing good. And it is my extreme pleasure to welcome Mark to the Conscious Consultant Hour. Welcome to the studio, Mark.
Thanks, Sam. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you today.
Wonderful, wonderful, Mark. And we've kind of known each other for a little while. But for our audience, let's just give them a little bit of background. Ooh, we got some loving from the audience. You're very much into this, as they call it now, like social good ventures, right? Into, doing business, but it's not just the typical dog-eat-dog way of doing business. It's about doing it in a more sort of conscious, collaborative way. What kind of brought you to that? I mean, were you always like that? I mean, from the time you were a kid, were you the guy with like the lemonade stand that like got 3 or 4 other kids and said, let's do this together? Or was this something that sort of developed over time?
Well, I think I was a kid who always had a concern for doing good in the world. My parents were both social activists. My mother was an artist who had a very deep social activist part of her art. My father was a physician, later on became a psychiatrist, and was very interested in healing people, particularly people who couldn't afford to go to therapy, or people who were put away in mental institutions who he helped to get out and helped to have a normal life. So I was really brought up around the belief that you need to solve what my mother used to call the dog on the side of the road problem. So she would say that, you would ride down the road and you would see an injured dog on the side of the road, and the typical person would say, I should stop for that dog. Maybe that dog looks really, really sick. Maybe that dog's going to die, but I'm kind of busy. I'm sure the person behind me will stop. The person behind you, comes back, slows down, and says the same thing.
Right.
And very possibly nobody stops.
Right.
So my mother would say, if I see a dog on the side of the road and I think that dog might die, I'm not going to wait for the person behind me. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to make sure that dog doesn't die.
Wow.
So if we as a society, as a culture, right, as a civilization, can solve that problem where it's not okay for a dog or a human being or any living thing to be on the road to death, that somebody has to do something about it.
Right.
So that's the kind of family I grew up in.
Wow.
And my parents were the only two people in my entire family that were not in business. So the other side of my family, they were all entrepreneurs. So
okay.
my uncle's side of the family had a toy factory, actually a toy distributorship, which still exists in Brooklyn today.
Oh, cool.
Shepper Distributor and Sales Company.
All right, shout out to Shepper.
Yep, and then my grandfather on my mother's side had a brush company that made fine artist brushers that is still around today. It's owned by Binney and Smith, the company that makes Crayola crayons.
Okay.
So I grew up at the intersection of art, psychology, and entrepreneurship. So I was always fascinated with why do some entrepreneurs succeed and others not? Why do some businesses hit a certain level and then stop? Why are some entrepreneurs having fun at what they're doing? Others are miserable. So I really studied the psychology of entrepreneurship and the organizations that they run.
Wow.
That's what I've been passionate about since I was pretty young.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really kind of a unique background, and not too many people I've met who like were exposed at such a young age to both sort of the business side of things and making money, as well as sort of the social service and the human side of things, of like what do we do about people, and what do we do to improve life for people around the world. I think, can't remember the name, there was a Russian philosopher who once said that society will be judged by how it treats the poorest of the poor. And it's sort of like the dog on the side of the road analogy. It's like how we treat those people who have nothing is the biggest reflection for us of really where we're at in our growth and development, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, it's time for us to take a quick break. So let's go out to break, and when we come back, let's start talking about what brought you to write this book, Culture of Opportunity, and sort of what that even means, and we'll start getting into it.
Fantastic.
Everybody, please stay tuned. You're listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. My guest this hour is Mark Monchek, founder and chief opportunity officer of the Opportunity Lab and an author of the book, Culture of Opportunity. And we'll be right back.